Go ahead and fan it. Oops. Okay.
Alright, hello everyone. My name is Jennifer, and for my informative speech, I chose the topic of global warming. And so for this, I'm going to talk about basically what global warming is, what causes it, and what we should do moving forward. Global warming now, more than ever, poses a real threat to our environment as we know it. So, what is global warming? According to the Oxford Dictionary, it is defined as a gradual increase of the overall temperature of the Earth's atmosphere. Generally, it's attributed to the greenhouse effect, which if you didn't know, it's basically the trapping of the sun's warmth in our lower atmosphere due to greater transparency to visible radiation from our Earth. And the greenhouse effects are usually attributed to increased levels of carbon dioxide in our Earth's atmosphere, along with chlorofluorocarbons and other pollutants. You might be thinking, what does this matter to me, And what if I said this? Like, what if we've never seen another penguin? What if we've never seen another polar bear? You might be thinking, I don't care about animals. I don't care about the polar bears. What if we never see California or Florida? And these might seem like extreme examples, but honestly, it's a matter of when, not if. And believe it or not, today we're still in an ice age because 3/4 of Earth's fresh water, according to United States Geological Survey, last accessed June 13, it is still frozen in glaciers. You might think, okay, but this won't start to affect us for a couple years. But a couple years have passed, right? So, if you look at the handout that I handed out to you guys, you can see here, according to the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, otherwise known as NASA, our carbon levels are the highest they have been in decades. You can see how over the decades they have kind of fluctuated, like high points, low points, but never have they been this high. These levels, we have already seen floods due to melting glaciers. We've also seen changes in our climates, like our winters being colder, our summers being hotter, and honestly, not everybody is upset about this. According to Tara Brown, in a 2007 interview with a local farmer located in Greenland. And if you didn't know, Greenland is kind of ironically named because it's called Greenland, but it's not very green because most of it is frozen. So plants don't really grow too well there. But according to this farmer, because of the warming temperature, the ground is kind of melting more, allowing more vegetation to grow, and they are seeing greener winters and greener seasons sooner than expected. And the other thing about Greenland, which is kind of cool, you can go kind of to the tip of Greenland, and you can actually see the icebergs, which you can also see the melting. And when a piece chips off of these big glaciers, it makes a huge sound, almost like thunder. So they can literally see and hear the global warming causing these glaciers to melt. By this point, you might be wondering, well, what is being done about this? According to the World Resource Institute, last accessed June 13, countries have put together plans to deal with this issue at hand. China is one of the main contributors to the CO2 emissions going into our atmosphere, which makes sense because, what is it made in China? And also it makes sense why countries that are more agricultural based submit less CO2 emissions. Since our CO2 levels spiked after the post-industrial age, it's pretty obvious what caused the spike. We're not really focused on farming and planting, which plants, they absorb the CO2 and then produce oxygen for us, so less plants, less CO2 being absorbed. So back to China. Even though it is one of the main contributors to the CO2 emissions, it also is one of the biggest investors in renewable energy. They have invested $83.3 billion in renewable plants, and they plan to reduce their CO2 emissions 40 to 45% from 2005 levels in 2020, and they also plan to do 60 to 65 less from now to 2030. Other countries have also invested into renewable energy. The US, for example, has invested $38.3 billion, Europe $57.5 billion, and India $7.4 billion. With all this information, you might be thinking, what are people like you and me to do? So, for this, I'd say it's really important to stay informed about what's going on in the world and the changes that are already happening with us even knowing. Another thing would be obviously to recycle. I know it's kind of like redundant, recycling all the time, but if we do recycle, less forests are being cut down and more of our oxygen, our CO2 can be still absorbed. We can also invest in renewable energy. For example, solar panels. They're kind of pricey to install at first, I will admit, but not only will they save you power money like in the long run, but they will invest in our future. Because we want to start the change that we wish to see. And after researching this topic, I've definitely been left with a lot to think about. You know, I only knew global warming was happening, but I never knew like how bad it was. And it's left me with a lot to think about. I hope the speech has done the same for you guys.